This lesson is all about learning to work within a team. Now, within this line of work, we do not have the challenging situation of trying to work with no more than a handful of colleagues. One of the first things I do when I join a new team is to introduce myself to the team as early as possible, because there's nothing more intimidating than your colleagues trying to figure out whether you're competent enough that they can trust you to do your job without the need for hand-holding. By far, the thing that relays the biggest confidence is by going up to each new team member you encounter and make a very brief introduction and asking for their name. It would be great if each team member wore a name badge, but that would become irritating instantly, as every customer would know our names, and also due to safety concerns, we do not wear them. At every single venue I've worked at so far, the only person whose name is made clear to me is, of course, the head door supervisor, as these individuals are responsible for the overall team safety and assigning each security operative to their positions across the venue, and relaying information with other non-security staffs in order to maintain the overall safety for all customers and staffs at the venue. In traditional jobs, you typically have time to find your feet and get familiar with the work environment. That is not the case within door supervision. If you're really fortunate, you're placed in the care of someone who may have years of experience, but have not forgotten how it was like when they first started, how new all of it was, and how ill-prepared they felt when they had to deal with long queues of people with growing frustrations because they've had to wait for over 20 minutes or more. These particular head door supervisors will, of course, be understanding of your newness to it all. And if they're in a particularly good mood that day, you will be positioned in a low-traffic area. On my very first shift working as a door supervisor, I was in such a fortunate position to be partnered with a team of highly experienced and professional door supervisors. The head supervisor introduced me to his team of 3 operatives looking after a very busy pub/bar, and as I had no expectations where I might be placed, I was at the very least prepared to be thrown into the deep end and be told to either sink or swim. Luckily, that never happened. Where I was stationed was at the entrance to the smoking area, where it was less busy compared to nearer the main entrance, and for that, I was grateful. Though I was eager to make use of all that training I received about welcoming customers to a venue, this assignment was more to do with redirecting new customers to the main entrance and only allow customers within the venue access to and from the smoking area. For most of the night, there would be 1 or 2 underagers claiming they were already inside and that they were out for a smoke, and start telling me all sorts of stories of how they had to walk down to the nearest cash machine or had to see off a friend safely into a taxi. As plausible as these stories were, I had to redirect them to the main entrance because once customers had exited that venue and were nowhere near the smoking area, re-entry would only be via the main entrance. Being able to follow along accurately with the instructions given by the head door supervisor means that you start to gain the trust of your team members, because they will know that they won't need to be keeping an eye on hundreds of customers and then continuously worry whether you're following the instructions set out. While being stationed at the smoking area, I was also able to quickly get up to speed with dealing with customers, but not all at once, as when people go out to smoke, they either go on their own or in a group of 2, but no more than 3 at a time. This allowed me to observe and understand the types of customers the venue attracted and represented. Another lesson learned during my first shift was that when you're not sure about something, ask. From where I was stationed for the most part, I was able to see across the entire venue, with exception to the restrooms. Their general direction was made clear to me, but I could not map it out for either myself or a customer who may come up to me and ask for directions at any given time. Now, whenever I arrive at a new venue, if the venue does not seem like a labyrinth and not already busy and my request is granted, I ask to be allowed a walk around the venue internally to familiarize myself with all the fire escapes, smoking areas, cloakroom, and, of course, restrooms. Now, I can tell you there's nothing more embarrassing than not knowing where the restrooms are or knowing much else about the essential layout of a venue you're working at. When needing to call a colleague over to assist, it's important to stress that it's not urgent, as it happened to me that a customer came up and asked for directions to the restrooms, and having no idea where they were, and having no other venue staff nearby to assist, I made the call over the radio to one of my colleagues who was not stationed at a door at the time to come and assist, but I failed to mention that it was not an urgent call, and practically the entire team came over to assist as they thought that I was in immediate danger at the time. I have since learned my lesson and seen that by familiarizing myself with a venue's layout, I am also helping out my team by not making unnecessary radio calls, and if I have to make a call that is not urgent, I must state so at the end so as to not have them panic and worry that I am in immediate danger. By far, making a lot of radio calls that aren't urgent is the quickest way to be taken out of a team and that venue entirely, because taking colleagues away from their position without a good reason risks leaving doors exposed and vulnerable, and demonstrates a lack of confidence in your own abilities to make an accurate assessment of the situation for how and when to make a request for assistance. Another key aspect of team working within door supervision is when there is a need to eject a customer out of a venue for either being overly drunk or known to be acting improper, either aggressive or whatever else. No matter how strong physically we may be as door supervisors, when dealing with such situations with drunk and sometimes abusive customers, it's almost always best handled with another colleague present. Although every venue has their own ways of dealing with customer ejection, but for staff and customer safety, 2 staffs should be present to ensure that there is always one colleague at the front clearing a path towards the main exit, while the second colleague is creating more of a physical barrier with their arms out to the sides to guide the customer towards the exit, sort of like guide rails at a bowling alley. And an effective teamwork such as this means that the situation is handled swiftly and professionally with very little disturbance to the other customers, and should the drunk customer start to make an attempt to become physically aggressive to one of our colleagues, there is someone there ready to immediately assist to defuse and de-escalate the situation. And having experienced ejecting a customer on my own in a very busy venue, it can result in the situation being drawn out as you're needing to both ask and sometimes force your way through a crowd of people to get that customer out of the venue. There also comes a time when the gender of the customer must also be taken into consideration when they're being ejected. Always, it must be stressed that when ejecting a female customer or an individual who identifies as a female, that a female door supervisor be called over to assist with the situation and is present to go out. The last thing anyone wants, least of all the head door supervisor, is to have one of their team be drawn into a potential court case, having been accused of being overly physical with a female customer and placing their hands inappropriately on a customer's body. That's it for this episode. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode.